Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to the Frontline with Joe and Joe Pasillo and Joe Resinello. And once more, let us go into the breach. Joe, I love this guy. He's a South African pastor, okay? And if there's, and it's something, a common theme lately, not just on our program, but many programs, is that Africa is holding firm against a lot of the woke BS out there. They're obviously a little bit more grounded in, hey, our people can't eat, and you're worried, you want me to worry about a guy who wants to dress as a woman. You want me to worry about legalizing sodomy and abortion. Listen, we got bigger fish to fry over here, and I think the underlying attitude of most Africans is, and we don't want that anyway. Joe, let's listen to this guy, because I think he's great, and then we'll come back.
Arrogance of the Americans, the bulliness of the Americans. Let me even throw it on the west side. America right now comes to Tanzania, comes to Ghana, comes to Zambia with 16 million. And guess what? 16 million only for Zambia. The 16 million, ask me, what is it for?
What is it for?
For human rights. Across the river, China and Russia coming to South Africa. Ask me for what?
For what?
For a military training and skills sharing of security. So the Americans are more interested in a transgender, homosexual agenda around the world. They will invest their money and give you money to protect human rights. Russia and China are coming with weapons and militarization strategies so that we can protect ourselves. So I want to say this very loud and clear to the Americans. Continue on your transgender agenda. Stay there.
Tell me what he said was wrong, Joe.
Well, you know, this is my first comment because I read something this morning about Trudeau's visit to New York when he's meeting with Alex Soros, and they're basically looking to help poor countries in the Caribbean, West Indian countries, with a climate economic agenda. This is imperialism. You know, I love when you hear globalists talk about, in Canada, in the United States, they talk about what Europeans have done to the indigenous people. Oh, we oppress them. We oppress them. How is this not different? You're financially coercing them into doing something they don't want to do. And this is exactly the same thing. All you're doing is polishing it up. That's the first comment, Joe.
Yeah, I know, and it's exactly right. And that to me is the biggest comment is when they rail against European colonizers. Again, many of whom were brutal. We know that. The main thing a lot of these European nations were doing, they were bringing Christianity to these places, okay? And that's not arguable. That's the truth, okay? You don't have the right to impose your Christianity on them, okay? But you have the right, as a white European, as a white Canadian, as a white American, do you have the right to tell this pastor and his people in South Africa that in order to get Western money, they have to accept sodomy? They have to accept abortion? This is colonization too. Oh, no. We're exporting our values. Right. The same thing you said was exactly what we're not supposed to do. That's what I was taught my whole life. Colonialism was wrong as far as it goes, which obviously the jury's out on that. They don't want to argue about that. You have to make an argument whether or not the British in India was a bad thing. Okay. Now, ultimately, they were forced to leave. But India came into the modern world because of the British. Again, I'm including the sins of the British and other European nations. I'm not saying they were perfect, okay? But the point is, you tell me that that's wrong, but then you'll say that this pastor's wrong when he says, America, we don't want sodomy. We don't want that. I think that's the biggest point to push back against them, to say, if Christians didn't have the right, European Christianity did not have the right to bring European values to these places, Africa, India, and all of these other places, North America, back in, which now is Canada and the United States, okay? That if the West didn't have the right to do that, then you don't have the right to impose this on these indigenous people. Let us see, leaving aside too, Joe, the blatant racism is involved, because these Africans who are opposed to all this, obviously, Joe, they're black. They're black. Throw that over.
Joe, you know what it is? It's the old, I know better than you. I mean, that's what it is. I know. Oh, no. This is different. I know better than you. And that's what they're saying. And how about this? I'm not interested. It's the same thing what's going on in the U.S., where, to your point, a Christian parent says, no, I don't want my kid in public school. I pay taxes. I don't want my kid to hear X, Y, and Z. No, 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 no. I know better than you. Well,
Yeah.
you don't. You don't. And I have rights too. Well, this gentleman has rights as well. And they're stomping on them because they have an ideology too. And people won't accept that. They won't accept that. Oh, we're so tolerant. Really? You're tolerant? It seems to me you're forcing your will on this guy.
Well, no,
Doesn't seem
that's
like
exactly.
you're tolerant. And to your point, Joe, he is a person of color. Seems to me that could be qualified or couched as racism. Does anyone
Right.
say that?
Well,
Nope.
you have white Westerners telling black Africans that they don't know what the hell they're talking about.
That's right.
Well, to
That's
me, that's their definition of racism, not mine. But if that's the definition of racism, I can't give you a better example than that. White European, West, let's call them Western, white Western elites telling poor black Africans, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. Well, guess what? God bless, Pastor. All right. And by the way, I want to throw this out to you for a final comment. He mentioned across the river, you got China and Russia. They're helping them with military, tactical training, strategic training, probably weapons, okay? As he said, in order to protect themselves, okay? It's kind of funny, too. They need to protect themselves more against the woke agenda than they do actual blood and flesh enemies. And I think that's where he's going. But what I want your comment on is this. Joe, along the lines of what he just said, China and Russia are laughing at us. They are laughing their ass off. And that's the truth, okay? Because while we're pushing this nonsense, okay, they're out there and they're gaining friends in South Africa and other African nations. Hey, we'll help you we'll help you with real things like protecting yourself. They're laughing their ass off at America and the West.
Well, I think the West is chasing a foolish venture. Clearly, it's one that will be leading to its own destruction. You can't build a society on these ideas. Any clear-minded person knows that. Period. End of story, people.
Right.
You can't build a society on these ideas. And you know something? People always think just because someone is poor, i.e. comes from a country like this gentleman, that they're ignorant. And that's what you're saying to him. You know something? In many respects, they live a more dignified life than people in the United States, than people in Europe. And ultimately, to your point, Joe, China and Russia are making moves. They're making moves. It's happening in clear sight, and we are heading and barreling towards a geopolitical event which could shock and shake the world.
Let's hope that doesn't happen, okay? But unfortunately, because we're concerned more, like this pastor saying, with nonsense, unscientific, immoral, I would say satanic and demonic nonsense, okay? That's going to be the end of the American empire. All right, thanks for joining us here at the Frontline with Joe and Joe. A lot more content coming your way. Help us out. Click something that's going to help us out wherever you see us. We'll talk to you soon.